HBO Home Video presents 2 explosive new boxing videos. The Kings of the Ring and Emmy Award-winning Sonny Liston, The Mysterious Life and Death of a Champion. First, The Kings of the Ring takes you behind the scenes and past the hype for an in-your-face look at world heavyweight champions. From Jess Woodard to Mike Tyson, The Kings of the Ring uses rare archival footage and exclusive interviews to tell the story of the men who've made boxing history. Next, the life story of the King of the Beast is detailed in Sonny Liston, The Mysterious Life and Death of a Champion, the troubled tale of a boxing legend who had to fight for everything his whole life until his mysterious and still unexplained death. The Kings of the Ring and Emmy Award-winning Sonny Liston, The Mysterious Life and Death of a Champion. Join HBO Home Video's lineup of premier boxing videos, including Boxing's Best, the definitive boxing video series.
A pulverizing right to the jaw.
Featuring Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano, Joe Louis, and Muhammad Ali.
I'm the king of the world.
Plus, Boxing's Best is now available in a special Knockout Collector's Edition, the Champions Collection. But the action doesn't stop there. Complete your library with these other power players. The middleweights.
The best fighter of all time, the middleweight champ, Sugar Ray Robinson.
The heavyweights, featuring the big punchers.
A crashing right by Lewis, and Ramage goes down.
And the heavyweights featuring the stylists.
There will be a killer and a thriller and a killer when I get the gorilla in Manila.
And finally, boxing's greatest champions.
A devastating 1-2 combination.
Relive the greatest moments in boxing with Boxing's Best, the definitive boxing video series. Plus, The Kings of the Ring and Sonny Liston, The Mysterious Life and Death of a Champion. Own the entire series today or build your own collection tape by tape, starting with our special collector's edition, The Champions Collection. Available now only from HBO Home Video.
This is the story of one of the greatest fighters the world has ever seen. For 12 years, this powerful right and left combination crushed challengers like no other heavyweight champion in boxing's history. As time goes on, many will claim to be the greatest heavyweights of all time. Yet no one will ever command the worship of a race and an entire country like the man they used to call the Brown Bomber. This is the story of one of boxing's best, Joe Louis.
The impressive building that you're looking at behind us is Joe Louis Arena here in Detroit, Michigan. It was named after one of this city's favorite sons. He was the heavyweight boxing champion of the world for no less than 12 years. His name was Joseph Louis Barrow. You know, life was never easy for Joe Louis, even when he was heavyweight boxing champion of the world. He was born in Alabama, but he came north here to Detroit in 1926 with his mother, his stepfather, and 7 brothers and sisters. Joe's real father, Monroe Barrow, was confined to the Searcy Hospital for the Negro Insane in Mount Vernon, Alabama. That happened when Joe Louis was just 2 years old. He started fighting at Brewster's Gym here in Detroit, a place that we're going to be visiting a little bit later, for a fellow by the name of Atler Ellis. Billy Conn, you were the light heavyweight champion of the world. You climbed into the ring with Joe Louis on no less than 2 occasions, but I'll bet you would have loved to have had him in his very first fight as an amateur.
Yeah, I heard he was knocked down 7 times.
He was, in fact, but he said he had an excuse. He ate a dozen bananas before the fight, and that slowed him down.
Well, it takes a good man to get up 7 times.
Well, that's what Atler Ellis said. You had to have the feeling that Atler Ellis kind of had a premonition of what he might have had in terms of a prospect with Joe Louis. John Roxborough was the fellow that Joe Louis got involved with as a manager, rather an unsavory type, but then a lot of fighters got involved with that type at that time. He was a numbers guy. Joe then turned professional, and Billy Conn, he had a very good professional career. You saw him early on, and you knew right then he was really a comer.
Well, the first time I saw Joe Louis, I was about 16 years old, and I had a job putting a rosin box in his corner. And he fought Hans Berkey 10 rounds in Duquesne Garden, and he knocked him out. I knew Joe was going to be good then.
That brings us to February 21st, 1935. This was a rematch of a fight that Joe Louis had with Lee Ramage. Earlier, in December of 1934, he had knocked Ramage out in just 3 rounds. This one was for the money.
As Joe Louis went west to face Lee Ramage in Ramage's hometown of L.A., it would be the first Louis fight to be seen on film. The pictures would begin to tell a familiar story.
Louis is wearing the dark trunks with white stripes. Lee Ramage in the all-dark trunks. A crashing right by Louis, and Ramage goes down. The ring-wise Ramage takes a count of 9. Louis moves in, looking for a quick knockout here in round 2. This is the 3rd bout this year for the young Brown Bomber. Joe has won all 14 of his fights since turning professional just 10 months ago. 11 of those 14 wins were clean knockouts. Joe Louis, as you can see, was all business. There was a no-nonsense attitude at all times in the ring. No wasted effort. A tremendous left hook by Louis, and Ramage goes down. Louis with a barrage of combinations settles the issue. It's all over. Joe Louis scores a devastating 2nd-round knockout over young Lee Ramage.
I'm satisfied you're going to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. I hope so. Well, Joe, as your manager, I'm going to do everything possible to get you a chance to fight for the championship. Thank you.
7 months later, Joe Louis married Marva Trotta at 7:45 p.m. on September 24th, 1935 in Harlem. At 8 o'clock, he was on his way to Yankee Stadium to take on Max Baer.
Joe tries to hold on, but Maxie bores in. Now Louis starts throwing leather himself. Now it's Baer who's in trouble. Baer is trying to cover up. Joe's looking for a spot to hit for a quick knockout. Baer's still caught in that corner. He's got his left on Joe's head, trying to hold him off. By the 3rd round, Louis has the fight completely in control. And though Baer is always dangerous, Louis is out-timing him. The Brown Bomber's got Baer by the ropes again. A straight right, and Maxie crumbles to the canvas. Baer is trying to beat Louis so he can get a rematch with Jim Braddock. Man he lost his title to only 3 months before. But as Maxie gets off the canvas to face a devastating Joe Louis, his chances don't look too good. Baer is very tough, but Louis lands 3 left hooks that floor Max again. Once again, Baer is saved by the bell. In the 4th round, it seems only a matter of time before Joe brings the fight to a close. Baer tries to stay at close quarters, but Louis pushes him away. Watch the delayed effect of Joe's fouling right. Maxie slumps to the canvas, and although he gets to one knee, he's not able to reach his feet.
Joe Louis was now more than a prospect. He was a contender. Max Baer, knocked out in 4 rounds, had trouble envisioning Louis as a potential champion.
It was a hard fight. I was up against a very good man, and a man will go a long ways. I wish him a lot of luck and happiness in his marriage.
Now, a little turkey talk, you know, a lot of them are saying that you might have got up on that last knockdown. Could you have, Max?
Well, I'll tell you, in a way I knew what was going on around me. And, of course, my legs were, something wrong with my legs. I couldn't get up. And not only that, I saw more than one Joe Louis in that ring. It looked like whole Harlem was there. In this little ray of sunshine, you know, he couldn't go through those clouds. Too many dark ones.
You are a happy man today, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm very happy.
Doubly happy.
Yeah, that's
what makes you more happy? To beat Baer or to be married to this charming lady?
I think to be married.
Was it a tough fight, Mr. Louis?
Yeah, it was a tough fight, but I think I have the toughest fight home every night.
Tell us about your plans, Mr. Louis, for the future.
Oh, it ain't no plans, but best thing me, I'm going to stay boss.
Whom would you rather fight, Joe? Braddock or Schmeling?
Braddock.
You think Braddock will be easier? Yeah, much easier than the championship, too.
Oh, that makes a difference.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
You think
difference.
Braddock will be harder than Bear?
No. Can't be much harder than Bell.
Mrs. Lewis, what did you think of your husband?
I thought he was grand.
Well, you didn't expect him to lose, did you?
No.
You knew it was all the time.
Yeah.
How about a nice big kiss and finish it?
Yeah.
That won't happen.
Joe decided to take on Max Schmeling first, with demonstrations by Jewish organizations claiming Schmeling represented Nazi Germany. An overconfident and underweight Joe Louis entered the ring.
A ripping right by Max Schmeling. Louis is in trouble. Another dynamite right. Louis goes down. The referee, Arthur Donovan, signals Max to go to a neutral corner. Joe's up on his feet, but it's all Max here in round 4. Max kept pouring it on for the next 8 rounds, and Joe was in trouble throughout. Joe is still on his feet here in the 12th round, but Max is all over the Brown Bomber. A ripping right to the jaw by Max Schmeling. Crushing punches by Max. Joe is in desperate trouble here in the 12th. A dynamite right, and Louis goes down. Max Schmeling puts a temporary halt to the meteoric rise of the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis.
So the almighty Joe Louis was stopped. Maybe it was a relaxed training camp. No one knew the reason. Joe Louis was not one for excuses. He would explain himself in the ring. So Joe Louis marched on. Ex-champion Jack Sharkey came out of retirement, exclaiming the 12-year age difference between him and the young Louis meant nothing. He said he could whip any black fighter. Jack Sharkey was mistaken.
Louis in the dog trunks with white stripe. Former champion Jack Sharkey wearing the all-dog trunks. This is Joe's first fight since suffering his only loss just 8 weeks ago. That loss is indelible in his mind. A humiliating knockout at the hands of former world heavyweight champion Max Schmeling. Louis shoots a right, and Sharkey is down. He is hurt. Louis, intent on getting back on the winning side, is up against the tough Jack Sharkey. Here in round 2, Sharkey is in trouble. Sharkey tries to tie Louis up. Another barrage of punches, and Sharkey goes down again. The Brown Bomber comes out for round 3 very confident. As a professional, Joe has had 28 fights, winning 27, 23 by knockouts. Blistering punches by Joe Louis. Lethal left jab, and hooks and rights to the body. A right, and Sharkey goes down. Devastating combination punches tell the story. Can Sharkey weather this storm? He's up at the count of 6. Louis goes back to work, measuring his man, hitting to the body and head. A tremendous left hook, and Sharkey goes down again. A clean knockout by the great Joe Louis.
After the Schmeling disappointment, Louis had rebounded against Sharkey. To the fight world, he was the heavyweight of the future. In the Brewster section of Detroit, he was a hometown hero with a vision. The heavyweight championship of the world.
This is Mullet Street here in Detroit, Michigan. It's where Joe Louis lived when he and his family came north from Alabama. It, like most inner-city areas, has given way to urban renewal in these past few years. In fact, the family house would probably be somewhere right in the middle of the Hall of Justice across the street. When Joe Louis came back here in 1937, he came back a hero. He had just defeated Jack Sharkey, a man who was the heavyweight champion of the world, by way of his knockout over Primo Carnera. But earlier, he had lost to Max Schmeling, a loss that really devastated Joe Louis. But you know, Billy Kahn, in its own way, that loss might have been the best thing to ever happen to Joe.
Yeah, I think it did, because it appeared to me that he was out of shape. See, in the fight business, you have to be in shape at all times. There's a saying, a third-rater in good shape will beat a first-rater out of shape. Not to say this guy was not a first-rate fighter, which he was, a middleweight champion. See, I beat 38 guys in a row one time, and I was out of shape with all guys Sully Krieger, and he fixed me.
James Braddock was the heavyweight champion of the world at that time. His manager, Joe Gould, was at that fight. Gould didn't think too much of Joe Louis, and so he made the match for Braddock to fight Louis instead of Schmeling.
Well, he underestimated Joe. He thought he was a soft touch, you know, he's just a flash in the pan, but Joe was in shape, and that's what counts.
So Joe Louis got his title shot with James Braddock. Braddock was the underdog in that fight, Louis the 2-1 favorite, and that was the first time that a challenger had ever been favored over a champion. Braddock was going to make $500,000 for the championship fight with Joe Louis. Louis would get 17.5% of the net profit. What did you think at that time, Billy? Would you have bet on Joe Louis in that fight?
Sure, I'd have bet on Joe Louis.
So
Braddock was an old man. I'd have bet on Joe Louis.
Nothing left to do except watch the fight, and it took place on June 22nd, 1937 at Comiskey Park, Chicago.
Joe Louis was about to pioneer a new era in American society. He was to become the first black man to fight for the title in 27 years. Joe Louis was to become an idol to millions and one of the greatest heavyweights ever to wear the crown.
Champion Braddock is wearing the trunks with the white stripe. Joe Louis is wearing the all-dark trunks. Joe Louis was the aggressor in rounds 2 through 7 and is ahead on points here in round 8. A dynamite right sends Braddock crumbling to the canvas. The referee sends Louis to a neutral corner and picks up the count. Braddock is out cold from that ponderous right hand. It's all over. Joe Louis scores a devastating 8-round knockout over Jimmy Braddock to win the heavyweight championship of the world.
At 23, Joe Louis had become the heavyweight champion of the world. The press had to eat their statement that boxing would never again see a black champion. Joe remained soft-spoken, recovering from all the excitement.
In the 4th round, I felt that I could beat him. I had him missing, and I was moving fast, and I was punching him pretty rapidly. So I felt sure that I could beat him in the 4th round.
And how did you feel when the fight was all over, Joe?
Oh, I felt fine, because I had a tough fight, and I fought a tough man.
When Joe Louis starred in his first film role shortly after the title fight, it was clear his future was paved in glitter.
I want to get ahead and be somebody and do things for Mama and Papa.
It was also clear that his future belonged in the ring. Louis signed a 5-year contract with Mike Jacobs for 4 fights a year. Challengers fell one at a time. Nathan Mann was no exception.
Louis with a stripe on his trunks. More than 5,000 folks from Hamden, Connecticut, practically half the town here tonight to root for their hometown boy, Natey Mann. You can see the concentration in Joe's face as he looks for an opening. Seven, 8, 9. Man is saved by the bell. Now here we go into round 3. Right uppercut and left hook combination. How that Louis can hit. The referee asks Natey if he can go on. Yes, he's going to continue. The 4th knockdown.
The end was clear. Louis was in his prime. He was confident and determined. Joe Louis had reached every goal he had set for himself with one glaring exception: the loss to Max Schmeling. When 70,000 gathered in Yankee Stadium for the Louis-Schmeling rematch, this was more than a fight. Joe symbolized America. Schmeling represented Nazi Germany. In time, history would repeat itself.
The heavyweight champion of the world comes out for round 1 in the dark trunks with the white stripe. Max Schmeling is wearing the all-dark trunks. Since winning the World Heavyweight title, Joe has defended it 3 times. In his last defense of the title 10 months ago, Joe KO'd Harry Thomas in the 5th round. Max Schmeling won the heavyweight championship of the world in June of 1930, 8 years ago, from Jack Sharkey. Max was awarded the fight on a foul when he was hit low by a blow thrown by Sharkey. Schmeling lost a close, tough 15-round decision to Sharkey and lost the World Heavyweight title 2 years later. Max is attempting to become the first former heavyweight champion ever to regain the precious title. 6 other champions have tried and failed. Joe Louis wants this victory desperately. Joe is deadly serious in there. An explosive right to the jaw hurts Max Schmeling. Joe Louis all over Max Schmeling here in round 1. Ripping punches to the head. Joe steps back. A dynamite right to the jaw, and Schmeling goes down here in the 1st round. Max is up at the count of 2. Louis moves in. Ripping punches by the Brown Bomber send Schmeling down again. A crushing right explodes off Schmeling's jaw, and Max goes down for the 3rd time. It doesn't look like Schmeling's going to make it. It's all over. Joe Louis electrifies the boxing world with his magnificent 1st-round devastating knockout over Max Schmeling.
As Joe pummeled Max Schmeling to the canvas, America rejoiced, and the Germans pulled the plug on the broadcast. As Joe Louis climbed out of that ring in Yankee Stadium, he was the hero of the Battle of New York City. As the world erupted into World War II, Joe Louis became the pride of a nation. When Joe Louis defended the crown, 2-ton Tony Galento proved to be an unexpected nemesis. Yet in the end, Galento's vigor only served to make Joe mad.
Galento promised his friends this scrap wouldn't go beyond 5 rounds. When Louis heard about it, he said, sure, but he'd be the one to end it with a knockout over Tony. Tony also said he'd murdered Joe, and he called him a bum. But the bomber wasn't mad at Galento. He says Tony's just a fat old man, just another day's work. Right cross and left hook. What a power combination. Galento up at the count of 2. That was the first time Galento's been knocked down in all his 11 years in the ring. The end of round 2. Referee's been warning Galento about holding with that left and hitting with his right. Hard left to the jaw by Galento. Louis up at the count of 2. This is a surprise. It's the first time that Joe's been knocked down since he took the title from Braddock. The crowd is wild. They're screaming for Galento to follow it up. Tony just doesn't know what to do. Galento completely helpless. Tony drops to his knees. He's in bad shape, and the referee stops the fight. It's all over.
2-ton Tony Galento may have regretted putting Joe Louis on the canvas. Another man might have backed away in fright, but Joe Louis put Galento away. Still, Tony thought he had the champion.
They should have let me fight my own fight, and I should have went out and fought a rough fight. Not like they want me to fight low and be careful. I don't want to be careful. I want to take a few and get one over and knock him dead. I hit him a light punch and knocked him out. And knocked him down. I'd have knocked him out. I had him down twice. You think Donovan was right in stopping the fight? No, I should have knocked him out. That was my manager.
Look, all right, hold it a minute. You think you had him when you knocked him down, Tony?
Sure, I only had a late punch and knocked the bum down.
What are you going to do now, Tony?
I'm going to get in good shape and fight my own fights and listen to nobody.
You're feeling how?
Well, I feel okay.
Look a little tired.
Well, yeah, you're a little tired.
Did that Galeno man really hit you hard?
Well, he hit me hard enough to knock me down. I guess that's hard enough.
Well, you got up again.
On February 9th, 1940, Joe Louis defended his crown against Arturo Godoy of Chile. The champion recorded a 15-round decision, despite his worst showing in recent years.
Now round 3 here at Madison Square Garden. The place jam-packed for this international heavyweight title fight between Joe Louis, the world's champion, and Arturo Godoy, champion of Chile. Doing far better than anyone expected. Joe's been getting in a few short rights to Godoy's left eye. It's puffed up quite a bit. There's the end of round 3. Now here we go to the 15th and final round of this title bout between Joe Louis, the heavyweight champion, and Arturo Godoy, the challenger from Chile. Everyone's amazed that this fight has gone this far. It'll be a great upset if Godoy goes all the way. There's the end of the fight. And look at Godoy bouncing around happy as can be. Here's the official announcement.
The decision, winner, and still world heavyweight champion, Joe Louis.
It was a controversial decision. Godoy was demonstrative, Louis apathetic. As the press clamored with the excitement of a Louis downfall, Joe set out to recover his professional pride. A short month and a half later, Joe Louis redeemed himself against a helpless Johnny Paycheck. As the world drifted into war, Paycheck found himself on the front line against Joe Louis.
Louis, poker-faced, stolid, shuffling after his foe, Johnny Paycheck. There it is. A tremendous right cross. Paycheck can't get up again, and Arthur Donovan stops the fight. That's Ray Arcel ministering to him. Here it comes now. Wow. That's all. No doubt about it.
Joe Louis disposed of Paycheck early. His crown was never in jeopardy. Europe was in chaos. Joe Louis registered for the draft while preparing for a rematch with Arturo Godoy. The Chilean had no interest in Europe, and he would soon lose interest in Joe Louis's crown.
Godoy wearing dark trunks with white stripes. Louis in his familiar trunks with the initials JL. In February, 5 months ago, Joe took a 15-round decision over Godoy in defense of his heavyweight crown. This is the second meeting of these two fighters. Here in the 7th round, Joe Louis getting off those deadly combination punches. Godoy goes down after a barrage of punches by Joe Louis. That one knockdown slows up Godoy. Joe Louis comes out for round 8 full of confidence. Godoy up to now has been an elusive target, fighting out of a crouch and forcing Louis to punch down. But now Godoy is standing erect, with Lewis ripping short right uppercuts to the head and damaging punches to the body. No man threw combinations like Joe Louis. Watch as he measures his man, sets him up. Godoy in plenty of trouble. Here in round 8, a right hand, and Godoy goes down. Godoy is up with a count of 8. Now the Brown Bomber goes to work with his famous combination. Godoy trying to tie the champion up. A dynamite right by Joe Louis, and Godoy goes down like a ton of bricks. He is hurt. The referee stops the fight, but Godoy wants to continue. His hand was trying to hold him back.
Joe Louis defended his crown for the 11th time with his 9th knockout. But as Joe began to dominate the heavyweight division, he started losing control of his private life. As Joe stepped into the ring with Max Baer's younger brother Buddy, he was faced with problems at home. He had to plead with his wife Marva to take back her application for divorce. Nevertheless, none of this seemed to make life easier for Buddy Baer.
A flurry of punches sends Louis rolling from the ring rope. Referee Donovan sends Baer to a neutral corner as Louis makes his way back into the ring. Baer moves right in. Louis appears all right after that knockdown. In rounds 2 through 5, Louis landed repeatedly and is ahead in the scoring here in the 6th round. Louis working on the inside. A jolting right and Baer goes down. Buddy is up immediately, and the Brown Bomber moves in. Arthur Donovan watches the action closely. An explosive right, and Baer crumbles. Louis goes to a neutral corner as Donovan picks up the count. Louis lands a crushing right at the bell that sends Baer crashing to the canvas. Baer's cornermen rush to help their fallen fighter. They say Louis threw that bomb after the bell sounded. Louis comes out for round 7, but Baer's cornermen will not allow their fighter to continue, insisting he be awarded a fight on a foul.
Buddy Baer's manager, Ansel Hoffman, claimed Louis hit him after the bell. As Hoffman kept his fighter on the stool, Baer was disqualified. The decision was in Buddy Baer's best interest.
This is the Brewster Boxing Club, a place that just seems to be in a time warp. And this is the very ring that Joe Louis learned how to box in. In fact, it was right over there that Atler Ellis tied Joe's right hand to the ring rope so that he could learn to fight with his left hand. He got beat up pretty bad that day. His left hand wound up being his most powerful weapon. During the time that Joe trained here, a young man named Walker Smith also came to the gym. One day he asked Joe if he could use his gym bag, and Joe agreed. Louis and Walker Smith became fast friends. Now, you may not know Walker Smith, but you do know Sugar Ray Robinson. And right over there, well, that's Joe's locker, and it is today as it was back then. Joe was a troubled man in the late 30s and the early 40s. His wife had threatened divorce on more than one occasion. He was spending a lot of money, and he was gambling on an erratic golf game. But he just kept on winning fights. And Billy Conn, he had a fight upcoming with you, and he said himself that that was going to be a tough fight. But he wanted to come in at less than 200 pounds, and the reason he did is that really, you were a light heavyweight.
Well, I weighed 169.5, and Joe came in at 199.5, and he didn't want to make it look too bad.
Nonetheless, you took it to him for 12 rounds, you moved well, and you had a heavyweight championship in your hip pocket.
Well, I knew that. The fellas in the corner told me that all I had to do was stay away and not point him so he couldn't hit me. I was outboxing him, but I made a mistake. I hit him in the 12th round with a real good left hook, and he started to hold on, and I got a little excited. When I got back to the corner, they said, stay away from him. Joe's corner told him, he knew he was losing the fight on points, and he says, well, I can't catch him, he's too fast. But he said to me, I knew you had to get fresh and make a mistake, and I had to fix it. That's what happened.
Isn't it funny, though, how every fighter, even if he's not a knockout puncher, still thinks he can knock his man out?
Well, if you hurt him and he's holding on, naturally you're supposed to try to knock him out. That's what you're supposed to do. That's your business.
They say it was one of the great fights in history, and we're going to watch it one more time. Joe Louis and Billy Conn.
55,000 packed the Polo Grounds to witness a supposed mismatch between two gallant warriors. Billy Conn was a 174-pound light heavyweight with the heart of a champion. That night in 1941 almost belonged to Billy Conn.
Conn is giving away 25 pounds to the man rated by many as the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. Watch this tremendous flurry by Conn. Louis is hurt. He's in desperate trouble. He grabs Billy for support. Conn's definitely looking for that knockout. In round 13, Louis shoots in two blistering rights and a left. He knows he's got to knock Billy out to win this fight. This is one of the greatest heavyweight championship fights in years. Watch Billy come back with a sensational flurry of punches. Conn is desperately trying to finish it right here and now. But the great Brown Bomber has other ideas. Watch him go to work on the light heavyweight champion. Now it's Louis coming on. This time it's Joe who has Conn groggy. Louis lands a punishing left-right combination. Conn is trying to last out the round. Watch the final 6 dynamite punches to the head, which finally put Billy down. Billy will vainly attempt to rise before the fatal 10, but he doesn't quite make it.
If Joe Louis had not knocked out Billy Conn in the 13th, boxing history would have been rewritten. For Billy Conn, this was a rude awakening.
Great fight tonight. I know that Uncle Mike's going to give me another chance, and I know I can win it. I guess I had too much to win for tonight, and I tried to knock him out.
With the United States now in a war effort, Joe Louis and Mike Jacobs decided to donate all of their $75,000 purse for fighting Abe Simon to the Army Relief Fund. Joe Louis was willing to sacrifice for his country.
This is the Brown Bomber's 21st defense of the heavyweight crown. He won 5 years ago by knocking out Jimmy Braddock. This is the second meeting of Louis and Simon. The champion stopped Simon in the 13th round in Detroit 1 year ago. A murderous right explodes off Simon's jaw. Louis raining punches from all angles. And Simon goes down. In rounds 3 and 4, Louis continued to land punishing blows. It's a testament to Simon's courage that he's still on his feet here in round 5. Simon trying to work on the inside. The referee breaks the two men. Louis looking for an opening to put Simon away. This is the champion's second fight this year. The Brown Bomber KO'd Buddy Bear in the opening round 2 months ago. Simon trying to keep Louis at bay with that left jab. Louis lands 4 crushing blows that render Simon helpless. A right hand explodes off Simon's jaw, and he crashes to the canvas here in round 5. The bell saves Simon from a knockout. A jolting right hand sends Simon down again. Louis moves into a neutral corner as the referee picks up the count. Although Simon wants to continue, it's all over.
After the knockout of Simon, Joe Louis did not defend his crown for 4 long years. As the United States fought in World War II, Joe Louis became a sergeant in the armed forces.
This is McDougal Street on Detroit's East Side. With his earnings, Joe Louis bought his mother a home on this very block. The world was at war at this point, and Joe joined the service as well to do his part, as he put it. During the war years, Joe Louis fought some 96 fights all over the world. It was said that some 5 million servicemen had a chance to see the champion box. And Joe always had a heart of gold. During that time, it was not on just one occasion that when a loved one died, Joe would pick up the funeral expenses for a fellow serviceman. Billy Conn, during those war years, you were also in the service. You were a corporal. Joe Louis was a sergeant. And I know at one time during the war, you thought that you had that rematch with Joe that you sorely wanted.
Yeah, we were going to fight for the Army Emergency Relief during the war, and something happened. I had a 3-day pass after we signed up to fight, and I came home and I got in a fight with my father-in-law, and I broke my hand, and they called the fight off.
There was another incident that happened in Mike Jacobs' office before the war.
Oh, yeah. I was sitting there talking to Joe, and I said, man, I got a bad break with you. I could have went around the corner and told all the guys that I'm the heavyweight champion. He kept it about 6 months. I'll let you win it back. And he looked at me. He says, you had it for 12 rounds. You couldn't keep it. How the hell were you going to keep it for 6 months?
Well, after the war, you did get your chance. Mike Jacobs, who was then Joe Louis's promoter, arranged the fight. Billy Conn versus Joe Louis. Louis weighed 207 pounds, and Billy Conn, you weighed, well, they said 189, and you say 180.
What's the difference what I weighed? I didn't get there.
And the folks who saw the fight afterwards said it was a different Billy Conn than it was the first time.
It's not too long. It was 4 years out of it.
Do you want to see this one all over again?
No, forget it.
Got to put you through it. Billy Conn versus Joe Louis.
June 19th, 1946. Joe Louis squares off with Billy Conn, uttering some ominous words to the press. He can run, but he can't hide. Billy Conn would soon understand.
Conn, with the stripe on his trunk, is boxing cautiously against the man considered by many the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, Joe Louis. Conn using that left jab at long range. This is the second meeting of these two men. 5 years ago, Louis, trailing on all scorecards, rallied to knock out Conn in the 13th round. Louis has Conn cornered here in round 5. A stinging left hook by the challenger. The bell ending the round. In rounds 6 and 7, Louis continued to be the aggressor and won both rounds. Here in round 8, the champion is definitely in command. Louis throwing torrid punches at the challenger. Conn at 177 is giving away 20 pounds to the Brown Bomber. But throwing punches in there with Joe Louis shows that Billy has a mountain of courage. A right cross, and Billy tries to hold. An explosive combination sends Conn crashing to the canvas here in round 8. The referee is counting, but it's all over. Joe Louis successfully defends his heavyweight crown against the former light heavyweight champion, Billy Conn.
After making $625,000 in the Conn fight, Louis had to give half of it to his managers. $81,000 went to Uncle Sam. The rest paid back debts. Joe needed another title defense. The champion decided on former sparring partner Jersey Joe Walcott. It was almost the biggest mistake of Louis's fighting life.
Louis goes down from a crisp right to the jaw. That's the first time Joe has been dropped since Buddy Bear turned the trick 6 years ago. Rounds 2 and 3 were scored evenly. Here in round 4, Louis is still looking for an opening. There's that right-hand bomb by Walcott again. Louis is taking a 9 count. Joe is up, but no one envisioned that Walcott could do this to Joe Louis. For 15 frustrating rounds, Louis has pursued the clever Walcott all over the ring. The fight's over, and Louis starts to leave the ring, thinking he has lost the decision and the championship.
In utter shock, Walcott and his handlers accepted the controversial decision. When letters and telegrams flooded New York, Louis called for a rematch to erase any doubts. On June 25th, 1948, Joe Louis had one more point to prove. He had to settle the speculations of his demise in the first Walcott fight. For Joe Louis, there was only one way to get something across.
Louis misses with the left, and Jersey Joe lands a jolting right to Louis's jaw, sending him to the canvas here in round 3. Louis is up immediately. This is Walcott's second shot at the title. 6 months ago, the two went 15 sizzling rounds, with Louis winning a split decision. Walcott at 34 would be one of the oldest fighters to win the heavyweight crown if he succeeds tonight. Here in the 11th round, it's still very close. Jersey Joe is exhibiting some fancy footwork in there as Lewis patiently waits for an opening. But Walcott must be careful. Lewis carries dynamite in both fists. His ring record speaks for itself. 20 of his 24 title defenses have ended in knockouts. Walcott gets hit with a jolting right hand. Walcott breaks away, but the Brown Bomber has him in trouble. A devastating barrage of punches, and Jersey Joe drops to the canvas. The referee picks up the count. Jersey Joe tries to clear his head after that avalanche of leather. He staggers to his feet, but too late.
Joe Louis had nothing left to prove. Apparently, it was the end of an era.
When you knocked him down, did you think he'd get up?
No, man, I thought when I hit him, I know that when he went down, he couldn't get up. I hit him with 4 or 5 very good punches.
I thought you hit him with my left hook, Joe.
Well, man, I hit him with my right, too. Well, I'd like to say again that I retired. Tonight was my last fight. And thank you very much.
At 34, Joe Louis seemed ready to move on to a life of leisure. Even though the government demanded the bulk of his money, the boxing world believed that Joe Louis would remain a retired heavyweight champion. In time, whether because of pride or money, the aging champion would return.
And so Joe Louis retired and came back to the streets of Brewster, streets that were familiar to him with familiar faces and familiar scenes. But it was to be a short-lived retirement. Almost immediately, Joe set about planning a 19-bout exhibition tour. Simply said, he had to do it. Joe Louis needed the money. It also ultimately cost him his marriage to Marva on a permanent basis. Billy Conn, I can't help but wonder, it must be a very tough decision for a fighter to make, just when to hang the gloves up.
Well, if you know you're through and you can't fight anymore, it's no use you continue, and you might get hurt or something. So if you owe some guys money, to hell with them. Just owe them and forget about it.
Joe Louis, of course, was a guy who I'm sure had to agonize over that decision. He was a man who really felt that all deeds had to be equal, that he felt he had to pay the piper.
I guess you're right about that.
And of course, Joe Louis did come back to the ring, but first he took a job with Jim Norris as a promoter, and he earned a salary of $20,000. Add that to the $300,000 he made on that 19-fight tour, and you'd think that's a pretty good living. But wrong again. Joe did have to pay the piper. The piper, of course, was the tax man. Ezzard Charles was the first big test on a comeback trail for Joe Louis, but it wasn't going to be easy. The government didn't even leave him enough money to set up a training facility.
With only 7 weeks to train after a 2-year layoff, Joe Louis set out to get his title back. Ezzard Charles had taken over Joe's vacated title by decisioning Jersey Joe Walcott. On September 27, 1950, the world awaited the return of Joe Louis. As Joe struggled to pay off the tax man, he desperately tried to regain a style of boxing he would never see again.
Joe Louis, now 36 years of age, still stalking, still moving forward, still looking to throw that terrific right hand or that straight left jab. But it lacks its speed, its former crispness and sharpness. Still a force to be reckoned with, and Ezzard Charles knows it. Charles a good deal lighter at 183.5 to Joe Louis's 218. Joe about 15 pounds over what he usually fought at. Now we're in the 15th round. Closing moments of the fight, and Louis knows he has to KO Ezzard Charles to come up with the win. Shades of former greatness when he fought Max Schmeling and Billy Conn and Maxie Baer, but only shades of that greatness now. The closing moments of the fight. Louis going down gamely, still trying hard, still throwing punches at the bell.
Joe Louis had lost his second professional fight. At 36, the Brown Bomber was not the same fighter the nation once adored. He was a man torn by the pressures of debt.
When do you think you really had to fight once?
After the bell had rung and the judges had announced a decision in my favor.
When Joe Louis stepped into the ring to face Rocky Marciano, he did it for one reason. He needed the $300,000 guarantee to pay off $1 million to the United States government. Joe Louis was not merely fighting Rocky Marciano. He was struggling to survive.
Marciano seems more aggressive now, beginning to pile on the pressure. Beginning to quicken the tempo and the pace, making it tougher on the older Joe Louis. Marciano seems to be landing more frequently now. Louis looking just a bit tired, and Marciano just as strong as ever. Bull-like in his rushes. A solid left, and down goes Louis. A left hook to the jaw. And Louis takes the count on one knee. Goldstein counting over him. Now he's up at his feet. Ready to meet Rocky Marciano. It comes plowing in. Louis trying to hold on. Marciano trying to end it right here and now. Louis using all his ring experience, trying to hold on. Marciano trying to get that one punch home. Back against the ropes goes Louis. A left and a right, and down he goes, and through the ropes on the apron of the ring. It's all over. He can't get up. He's being helped to his feet now by referee Ruby Goldstein. And Dr. Vincent Nautillo, the Gordon's ringside physician, and all of Joe's handlers are looking after the former champion now. But apart from the days he's in, Joe is okay.
Unfortunately, the ending is a sad one. Joe Louis was a broken man. After that fateful night when Marciano knocked him through the ropes, Joe's options were none. He could not fight for money because he no longer had the boxing skills. The government would continue to take all of his earnings for back taxes. Yet when you think of Joe Louis, remember him not as a fallen fighter or even as a beaten man. Think of him as the greatest heavyweight of all time.
The ending was not a happy one. But the Joe Louis Arena here in Detroit, where Billy and I are standing, was not named for the failures of the man, but rather for his accomplishments. When Rocky Marciano knocked out Joe Louis in 1951, Louis was suddenly a man without a job. He was also a man with a tax debt that had now exceeded $1 million. It was a debt that Joe himself knew he could never possibly repay. But in 1954, by act of Congress, that tax debt was stricken from the record. Billy Conn, you knew Joe Louis inside the ring, and you knew him outside the ring. He was a very different personality in one place than he was in the other.
Oh, sure. Joe was a great fighter, and he was an unassuming, real high-class gentleman.
Had a killer instinct in the ring, though.
Oh, sure.
But outside the ring, he had a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, he had a great sense of humor.
You told me a story of what happened in Las Vegas. It was a time that you and Joe were in a restaurant, and Muhammad Ali happened by.
Yes, I remember. It was a long time ago. We were sitting in the Stardust, one of the big places out there, having something to eat. And Clay comes in, and right away he picks on Joe Louis. You know, he starts to rib Joe, and he says what a break Joe got that he wasn't around in his time. He would have did this and that. So Joe looked up at him. He said, "Listen, boy, if you even dreamt about it, you should apologize." So I looked at Clay, and I said, "How'd you like to shake that one off your rear end?" He said, start laughing. He said, "Both of you are crazy. I'll see you later." And he walked out.
Was Joe Louis the greatest heavyweight champion ever? Well, that debate will rage, as we mentioned, as long as there is a sport of boxing. But there is no question Joseph Louis Barrow was one of boxing's best. For Billy Conn, I'm Barry Tompkins saying so long from Joe Louis Arena in Detroit.
This has been a presentation of HBO Sports.